On the scorched banks of the Ravi River in Punjab, a confrontation unfolded that made the entire Indian subcontinent hold its breath. From the north, Mongol horsemen surged forward like a living avalanche, carrying the legacy of conquerors who had burned and subdued half the known world. From the south, the armies of Delhi formed a fortress of steel, determined to halt the storm at the very gates of their land. This was more than just a battle. It was a decisive test of will, strategy, and survival for both sides. On the muddy, red-stained waters of the Ravi, amid the roar of war cries and the thunder of hooves, every thrust of a spear and clash of a sword carved its mark into history, echoing a question that would last for centuries. Would the Ravi witness Delhi's downfall, or would it become the birthplace of a legend, resistance against the Mongols? And that's why we're here. Welcome to Great History English, where the past is not only remembered but brought back to life in all its intensity and power. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Every day we step into the clash of empires where mighty powers rise, collide with fury, and sometimes collapse under the weight of ambition, steel, and destiny itself. If you've joined us before, you already know what awaits. So lean in, settle down, and step onto the battlefield with us. In the early 14th century, the Indian subcontinent stood at the crossroads of waves coming from both east and west. In the far north, the shadow of Genghis Khan still loomed large. Though the Mongol Empire had split into several Khanats, their military power, especially the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, continued to cast fear over both the Muslim and Hindu worlds. Once thriving centers like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Baghdad had already felt the devastation of steppe cavalry. To the northwest of the Indian subcontinent lay Punjab, where the great rivers Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, and Ravi merged. This land was not only the most fertile stretch of South Asia, but also a crucial gateway linking India with the Iranian plateau and Central Asia through the perilous passes of the Hindu Kush. For centuries, every northern invader, from Alexander's Greeks to Arab forces and later the Turco-Afghan armies that established the Delhi Sultanate, had to march through this region. At the center of Delhi's power stood the Khalji dynasty. Since Alauddin Khalji's rise to the throne in 1296, the dynasty had expanded its territories, strengthened administration, and restructured the military through sweeping reforms. In the army, Alauddin introduced horse branding and the chera system, where every soldier's identity was recorded. This ensured proper pay distribution and guaranteed that cavalrymen had qualified horses. Each horse was branded, and soldier records with portraits and identification details were preserved in the imperial archives. Alauddin maintained a massive standing army in Delhi, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, ready to be dispatched quickly to frontier zones. Beyond the capital, he positioned troops in strategic fortresses across Punjab, creating a defensive military belt against invasions from the northwest. He established fortified garrisons, stocked them with provisions, and set up cavalry posts connecting Lahore with Dipalpur, Multan, and the Upper Punjab. Even the marching routes were reinforced to allow rapid movement during the monsoons. Frontier units were trained regularly in countering steppe cavalry, focusing on flanking maneuvers and cutting off retreats. Economically, the court enforced strict price controls in Delhi, particularly on food, military supplies, and essential resources. Markets were supervised by appointed officials, and hoarding or profiteering was harshly punished. These policies drastically lowered the cost of sustaining a vast army, enabling Alauddin to feed and supply his troops throughout the year without exhausting the treasury. Land taxes were restructured, collected directly from peasants at high but fair rates, eliminating losses caused by intermediaries. This boosted royal revenue significantly, financing large military campaigns. Trade routes stretching from the Ganges Delta to the Punjab frontier were secured under royal protection, ensuring uninterrupted supplies of food, horses, weapons, and precious metals for war production. Politically, Alauddin centralized authority to a level never seen before in Delhi's history. He reduced the independence of the nobles, restricting their ability to raise private forces or form political alliances that could challenge the throne. The intelligence and surveillance system was expanded, covering both the military and the civilian population, to uncover early signs of rebellion, secret ties with foreign powers, or the work of Mongol spies. Even trusted generals were prevented from owning vast lands or amassing excessive wealth to avoid creating a counterforce to imperial authority. Through these measures, Delhi under Alauddin Khalji was transformed into a disciplined military administrative state, functioning like a vast war machine. When required, the court could mobilize national strength not only to defend its borders but also to launch campaigns deep into enemy lands, something earlier dynasties could rarely sustain. These reforms were not just for peace and stability. They directly served the demands of war. Alauddin understood clearly that the danger from the north would never fully disappear. From the late 13th to early 14th century, the Delhi Sultanate faced repeated Mongol invasions. At first, these were small, swift-moving raids that struck border areas and retreated before Delhi's army could respond. But over time, the Mongols adapted, sending larger, better organized forces determined to conquer rather than simply plunder. By 1305, the situation grew especially serious. The Chagatai Khanate, having consolidated its power in Central Asia, prepared a full-scale campaign into the subcontinent. This army was not only made up of expert nomadic cavalry but also infantry, archers, and support units strong enough to sustain a long war. Commanded by Taragai and Ali Beg, they crossed the Hindu Kush, entered the Indus Valley, and swiftly overran Delhi's border outposts. Their strategy was clear: strike at Punjab, the first line of defense and a vital food and supply base for any army advancing deeper into India. The Mongols moved toward the Ravi River, not only a natural defensive boundary but also the shortest route from the frontier to Delhi. Alauddin Khalji realized that if the Mongols crossed the Ravi, the capital itself would be in danger. He quickly dispatched General Malik Kafur, one of his most capable and loyal commanders, with a large army to Punjab. Kafur's orders were not only to halt the enemy, but to destroy the threat entirely, sending a firm message that Delhi was no longer an easy target. Both sides knew the stakes. If Delhi's army collapsed, the subcontinent would lie open to Mongol conquest. But if the Mongols were defeated, it would damage their strength and morale for years. Destiny led both forces to the banks of the Ravi River, where Punjab would witness a decisive clash. According to the Vedas, the oldest Hindu scriptures, the Ravi was called Iravati, meaning the one who refreshes. The Greeks knew it as Hydraudes, the river of the water snake. It was also called Parashani, the swift one. For centuries, this river served both as a trade route and a natural defense barrier. Any army seeking to enter India from the north had to cross it. Its sandy banks and fertile plains have been marked by blood from countless battles, ranging from tribal conflicts to empire-shaping wars. In Punjab's memory, the Ravi is more than a river. It represents the line between prosperity and ruin, between freedom and subjugation. In that year, under the scorching Punjab sun and on the cracked earth by the sacred river, two great armies prepared for a battle that would decide the subcontinent's fate. To the north, the Mongols under Taragai and Ali Beg advanced with 50,000 to 60,000 men, mostly skilled nomadic cavalry from the Central Asian steppes. They were natural horsemen, expert with short bows and long spears, able to shoot with deadly accuracy while riding at full speed. This time, however, they also brought additional infantry, archers, and a more organized supply force. Evidence of a deliberate conquest, not a mere raid. They camped on the northern bank of the Ravi, using high ground and nearby woods for cover while scouting Delhi's positions. To the south, Malik Kafur commanded Delhi's army, which included the Sultan's elite cavalry, infantry with spears and large shields and long-range archers. They had the advantage of superior weapons and armor, especially the heavy cavalry trained to resist Mongol attacks. Kafur also deployed light cavalry units on the flanks, prepared to block incursions or launch counterattacks. The Delhi forces camped on the southern bank of the Ravi, where they built barricades of wood and stone, along with shallow trenches, to prevent Mongol cavalry charges. The battlefield was set near Lahore on the Ravi River, an area both open and risky. In the dry season, the river's wide and shallow banks allowed crossings at many points, though the current still posed challenges for heavy cavalry. The surrounding plains, with flat alluvial stretches broken by hills and sparse tree cover, offered space for cavalry maneuvers, but also left formations exposed to long-range attacks. Control of the high ground and narrow passes would give a decisive advantage in both range and defense. Both Taragi and Kafur knew that even a small mistake in choosing the crossing point or timing could expose their forces to enemy arrows and spears. The battle at Ravi was not only a contest of numbers but also of tactics, testing defense, counterattack, and strategy in medieval India. At the start of the dry season in 1306, as the Ravi River receded to reveal shallow banks and golden sands, Dua Khan, the Chagatai Khan, ordered a new campaign to avenge earlier Mongol defeats in India. The army was led by General Kopek, sometimes recorded as Quebec, together with commanders Iqbalmand and Taibu. They marched from the Central Asian steppes, crossing the icy Hindu Kush, the Khyber Pass, and into the Kabul River Valley before descending toward the Indus Delta. From there they moved through Attock, advanced past Lahore and entered Punjab, the northwestern gateway to the Delhi Sultanate. Kopek's strategy was clear: strike deep into Punjab, destroy towns and garrisons, and then advance further into Delhi's territory. On their way, the Mongols plundered villages, devastated the fertile plains near Lahore, and established camp on the north bank of the Ravi near present-day Shadara. The site offered high ground and forest cover, but water was scarce. Wells dried quickly, pressuring them to attempt a crossing to reach supplies farther south. Meanwhile, news of the invasion spread swiftly through Delhi's network of scouts stationed along the Indus-Lahore-Beya route. Sultan Alauddin Khalji reacted at once, placing Malik Kafur, his loyal and battle-hardened general, in overall command of the defense. To raise morale, Alauddin promised his soldiers a full year's salary if they defeated the Mongols. Under Malik Kafur's command were several generals: Malik Tughlaq leading the vanguard, Shana Ibara, Lord of Depalpur, and Malik Alam. The Delhi army left the capital, moved swiftly through Sirhind, advanced to Depalpur, an important base in Punjab, and followed the right bank of the Ravi to block the Mongol advance. Soon, Tughlaq's vanguard clashed with Mongol scouts near Lahore and quickly located Kopek's main force. Malik Kafur chose a narrow section of the Ravi near Lahore as his defensive ground, where the riverbed was confined and high mounds to the south offered cover. He built wooden and stone defenses, dug a shallow trench in front, and stationed archers on the mounds to control fire range. Behind them, the heavy cavalry waited for orders to charge, while light cavalry guarded both flanks to disrupt any small crossings. For hours, the two armies faced each other across the river, neither side willing to strike first. At last, Kopek gave the order to attack. The Mongols began with volleys of arrows from the northern bank to provoke the Sultanate. By noon, they sent a large cavalry force through the shallows. Thousands of armored riders splashed across the water toward the southern bank. As the first groups landed, Malik Kafur ordered a full counterattack. Delhi's heavy cavalry surged forward, spears and curved swords tearing into the Mongol ranks. From the mounds, archers rained arrows on the trapped cavalry, forcing many men and horses into the current. Delhi infantry closed from both flanks, tightening the encirclement at the water's edge. The Mongols, skilled in open dry terrain, struggled in mud and barricades. Battle cries, pounding hooves, and clashing steel echoed along the Ravi. Within hours, their formation collapsed. Many were pushed back into the river and swept away. In the chaos, Kopek was captured alive as he tried to resist. Survivors fled toward Balmand and Tibu, who were advancing toward Nagaur in Rajasthan. But upon hearing of Kopek's defeat, both generals retreated across the Indus into Central Asia. Malik Kafur and Tughlaq pressed the pursuit, capturing and killing thousands. By dusk, the Ravi was littered with fallen warriors, shattered weapons, and drowned horses. The Mongol campaign had ended in disaster. This was the last attempt during Alauddin Khalji's reign for steppe horsemen to penetrate deep into India. The victory secured Malik Kafur's reputation and forced Taragai and Ali Beg to abandon their plans to capture Delhi. The Ravi battle became a symbol of successful resistance to the Mongols on India's frontier. Strategically, the victory meant more than securing Punjab. It was the second time within a decade that the Delhi Sultanate had repelled a massive Mongol invasion. Malik Kafur's use of the river terrain to offset the mobility of steppe cavalry became a textbook example of adapting to subcontinental conditions. Kopek's campaign had been more than a raid. The Mongols brought women and children, signaling an intent to settle in India. But after the crushing defeat, both families and soldiers were captured and taken to Delhi. Mongol losses were immense. Indian accounts describe tens of thousands killed or drowned, thousands of horses abandoned, and many generals dead or missing. Though Central Asian and Persian records remain largely silent, the rapid withdrawal of Taragai and Ali Beg confirms the campaign's complete failure. According to the Persian historian Wasaf, around 60,000 Mongols were killed in the battle, including their commander Kopek. He also records that Sultan Alauddin Khalji ordered a tower of human skulls to be built near Delhi's Badaun Gate as a warning for future generations. More than 50 years later, historian Ziauddin Barani confirmed that the grim monument was still standing. The 16th century historian Farishta estimated the Mongol army at 50,000 to 60,000 men, but only about 3,000 to 4,000 survived. The rest were executed by being trampled under elephants, while the women and children were sold into slavery in Delhi and other parts of India. Amir Khusrau wrote that this defeat terrified the Mongols so much that they fled to the Ghazni Mountains and did not attempt another expedition into India during Alauddin's rule. General Malik Tughlaq, then governor of Depalpur, continued the campaign for several years. He launched yearly raids into Kabul, Ghazni, Kandahar, and Garms on the borders of the Chagatai Khanate. These lands were repeatedly plundered, forced to pay tribute, and rarely resisted. In his Tughlaq-nama, Amir Khusrau recorded 20 victories for Tughlaq, most against the Mongols, a number also confirmed by Barani. Tughlaq was even granted an Iqta in Lahore. When Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta visited Multan, he saw an inscription in the Grand Mosque claiming Tughlaq had defeated the Mongols 29 times, though it is unclear whether this count included the raids. An undated letter from General Badr to Khizr Khan, Alauddin's son, suggests that Delhi's power reached as far as Ghazni. When Badr's army arrived one winter, the Mongols in that region accepted Alauddin's protection. His name was even invoked as the rightful ruler in the khutbah during Friday prayers at the local mosque. Politically, this victory strengthened Sultan Alauddin Khalji's prestige, both in the royal court and among his vassals. At a time when Delhi's court was always vulnerable to internal rebellion, defeating the Mongols at the frontier elevated the Khaljis as protectors of the Indian subcontinent. This defeat also forced the Mongol Khans in Central Asia to become more cautious about launching large-scale invasions of India for more than a decade. The victory at Ravi marked the final blow in a chain of Mongol defeats under Alauddin's reign, from Amroha in 1305 to Ravi in 1306. According to John Ricard, this was the last time the Mongols attempted to invade India with such large forces, limiting themselves to small raids afterward. The resilience and strong defense of the Delhi Sultanate turned it into a steel barrier between the Mongol steppe and Indian civilization. In Indian memory, the Ravi became more than just a river. It symbolized the line between survival and destruction. From the records of Delhi's court to Persian poetry, the Ravi victory is remembered as the moment when an entire civilization stood against one of the fiercest invasions of its era. The image of Malik Kafur and the Delhi army standing firm on the riverbank, spears pointed over the red silt, became legendary as a wall of steel that stopped the Mongol storm. Punjabi oral traditions recall how, on the eve of battle, Delhi soldiers carved their names into their spear shafts, ready to leave them behind if they fell, as a pledge to defend their homeland. In Islamic epics of India, the Ravi is remembered alongside famous battlefields such as Ain Jalut in the Levant, where the Mamluks defeated the Mongols, proof that Mongol power was not unstoppable. Scholars of the Khalji era saw this as evidence that Hindustan, united with the right strategy, could withstand any enemy. Over 6 centuries later, Ravi's name still echoes in folk songs, not just for a military victory, but because it marked the moment when Delhi transformed from a fragile defender into the spiritual stronghold of South Asia. From its banks came the message that some battles are fought not only for land, but also for the soul of a nation.